We're live.
We're live. Yes, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Hi, everybody. Good to see you again, or good to have faith that you are seeing us again.
Something. In some metaphor, we're connecting in some form
We
or
are.
fashion
We are connected.
through the
So,
miracles of digital media.
yes, good to be here with you all again, because now we're back to weekly, as we said. So anyway, so it's good to be back weekly too. It's good to do this with you, Lenny, every Friday instead of every other Friday. That just clearly wasn't enough, wasn't sufficient.
That's the nicest thing anybody said to me all day, Karen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, it is. There's too much going on. As usual, I mean, gosh, we started with what, like 20, 30 articles, and we've had to condense it down to just a
I know.
handful.
It's
There's
really
just so much happening.
yeah. Anyway, it's a fun time to be alive. So and I'm sure it's a fun time for people to respond to the latest grit survey, right, Lenny?
Good segue. Yes, as always for our listeners, twice a year we do the grit survey, and we just went into field today. So this is the one where we track things like methodology adoption and usage. Of course, there's questions around AI and automation. So this is really kind of that trending and tracking. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Wave of the survey on those things that are kind of nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes for researchers across the board. So please participate. We need your data. So, and there's a link. Thank you, Carly.
Yeah, thank you, Carly. Yeah, and for those of you who I've probably said this before on this show, but full disclosure, when I joined Green Book, I was like, wait, we do this twice a year? Wait, there's more than one report? Like I didn't quite anchor in my brain that it was two different data sets informing kind of two different purposes. So
yes. This is the one where this is the nuts and bolts. The one that you probably just did a few months ago, the report that just came out, the business innovation is focused on that, has the grit 50 and things, trying to understand the shifting roles of researchers and the different players entering the industry. So it's a broader, more industry wide view. This is more of a practitioner. This is the insights practice report, is what we call it. So this is really more practitioner focused, where the other one is more industry focused.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And yes, everybody, I'm sure it's in your inboxes, and we appreciate all of your support completing this initiative so that we can bring you the results. Right?
Yes, because there's no charge. We do this out of love. Please do, participate. And that's probably a good segue, because we need your data. Let's talk about needing data.
Look, the thing is, could we even have a show today without talking about what's happening with TikTok? I feel like it's the conversation I'm having in my family, with my husband, with my other kids. Like, we don't know what's happening on Sunday. So I figured let's just talk about it, because it matters, not just from a consumer behavior standpoint, but also from a marketer standpoint. And it's just going to be really interesting if there's this TikTok ban, if it starts on Sunday, or if the can is kicked in a couple months, then we'll probably have to talk about it again. But the consumer behavior aspect of this, I find fascinating.
I do too. Well, the latest news, if we probably don't have the link for it, the Supreme Court did uphold the ban. So as of right now, it is the law of the land to do that. But my understanding is that the Trump administration has some tools to kick the can down the road a little bit. So I suspect that's
and what they have to do, again, I feel like we could be preaching to the choir here, right? But if you're really not quite tracking it, because you're like, oh yeah, I don't do social media, or I don't do TikTok or whatever. The reality is that we have, Tim Lynch just commented that he went to Red Note. We'll get to that, Tim. We'll get to where people are going, because that's the migration pattern is really interesting. But the reality is that some people have been earning their living as influencers on TikTok, and the economic crash to these individuals who are creators, who have shops, who have set up their own, financial well-being through this platform, are going to be really hurt by this. So I think that's why there's economic interest, not just the national security interest, that has to be really looked at and really balanced. So
And
I mean, I
the
think
marketing spend, right? I mean, the optimization, for TikTok. Yeah, absolutely. It's a substitute. Suddenly, Google is outlawed, right?
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
the
everybody too. And
right.
people have to be mindful about what they're doing. So, like so there's this one of these articles that I think is a little bit further down, Carly, in there is where are people going right now? So yes, Red Note is one of them. That's another Chinese owned app that people are like being pretty irreverent and saying like, yeah, I'm just going to go directly to this other Chinese owned app and I'll start doing it there. But some people are going to something called Lemonade, which I don't know much about. Some people are just saying, you know what? And this is kind of my take on it right now is I'm on Instagram. I'll just do Instagram, reels and just get my short form video there, even if I've judged it before. Like I'll still do it, but I'll do it in an app I'm already using. So
Right,
people are making
X.
yeah, people are just making deliberate choices. Where will I get my short form content for? There's YouTube Shorts. They have to think about it, which is funny because it's not like maybe people thought like, hey, I don't think people set out where will I get my short form video content when they just were like, cool, new social media app. But now they're being really mindful about their choices. That's the human behavior that I think is really interesting. So
It is. That it was interesting early in the week. There was the rumor from I think the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg or somebody reported it that ByteDance was in negotiations with Elon Musk to which I didn't see. That apparently didn't materialize because it didn't make much sense to me at the time. It's like, I can kind of see that, but I don't think so.
This morning, who else was talking? Oh, Mr. Beast. Now, do you know who Mr. Beast is? Mr. Beast is looking at buying it.
To afford, how the hell could he afford? Sorry, I mean, I know they make a lot of money, but really to afford to buy TikTok?
He might make enough money. So, I read that this morning. I was like, you know what? This is so interesting. So, talk about like being under the gun though. If you were eyeballing the sale, I just think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens and to watch to see because, hands up if you ever bought something from the TikTok shop. I know you're not there, but I certainly have. And so as an e-commerce platform, that's changing, and people have had a lot of businesses, that are getting their traffic from that site. So again, economic implications, consumer behavior implications. That's why we got to talk about it, right? It's interesting.
Right. There may be some. I mean, I have no idea how quickly all that goes into effect. The buzz is that the Trump administration is not going to enforce that, and will try and use executive order or something to try and resolve it. We'll see. I'm not concerned that people are going to be come Monday absolutely shut down. I don't think that's going to happen. It is absolutely a distinct possibility.
Well, and that's what's really interesting about this is nobody really knows right now. My daughter and I were just talking downstairs and we were talking about all the recipes we have in TikTok. And she's like, people are downloading recipe books. So I'm like, maybe I have to download a recipe book. So I think this weekend will be a really interesting weekend for what people are doing with the things that they've saved in that platform just in case. So
well, it's an interesting broader issue on, as we build marketing channels and, from that perspective on these external platforms, third-party platforms that, stuff happens. Look at the chaos in California. Imagine if there was, if there is a massive server farm there that housed all of this. I don't think that's the case. I mean, just stuff happens that can impact our lives at this kind of macro level with technology and this geopolitical. There's natural disasters. There's whatever. I personally don't like having all my eggs in one basket. From that very reason, and maybe that's something the lesson here to think about of make sure we're optimizing across the board, omni-channel, because things evolve and change, and we sometimes have weird things like this.
It'll be interesting. So, certainly we'll have an interesting weekend ahead.
I think on every level, every day gets more and more interesting as we go. So,
so speaking of interesting, let's get to AI, right? Because we really haven't talked about AI yet, and we're 10 after.
I know. Well, it's a good segue. So these are good. I'm actually looking forward to talking about these, especially
Yeah,
the
yeah,
second one.
for
So
sure,
why don't
for
you
sure.
kick us off?
So yeah, so again, if you have not been tracking OpenAI and ChatGPT, they launched GPT tasks this week, so you can literally have this AI agent at work in your GPT system if that's what you use. But it's the idea that you can automate your own workflow by you can ask it to do things. Right now I've just played with maybe a reminder. It hasn't really happened yet, so I'm confused. I'm not doing it right, but the options are there. So I'm like, I didn't get my reminder this morning. Let me go back in. Anyway, but the idea is that it can integrate with your calendar, it can integrate with your, just kind of reminders with your notifications. So
Yeah,
yeah, and I don't know if you've experimented with that too, but it's the
I've
first kind
I've
the
not.
first sign that these are mainstream, not to mention what we've been looking at professionally for the last couple of days.
Right. Well, and when not so long ago we had Copilot
Yeah.
roll this out, and developing the agents, then the Microsoft framework, Gemini.
Yeah.
We were chatting, or at least a message.
Because
Anybody
this
else get
week,
this reminder from Google of like, oh, Gemini's
our
here. We can
Google,
do all
yeah,
these things for you.
Greenbook's Google Workplace opened up our access to the Gemini tools today. So I don't know if it was like slow launching in Google Workplace, but that's what hit today. So that's what hit us this week is we were like, all right, Gemini's telling us what we can do in our inboxes. Gemini's telling us what we can do in Google Drive. Like, we're a Google-based ecosystem. So that
Yeah.
also happened this week for us. So yes, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Like that, I haven't really spent too much time with Gemini just because it wasn't really as accessible to me. But I'm like, all right, I'm using it for things I would have used in ChatGPT, but it's right here in my Google Drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's making me happy.
Yes, and they're really, so the interesting, and we were, later on this year we'll have IXAI, and we were talking earlier this week of what's our theme. Well, I mean, I think we kind of have it to an extent, because the next evolution, here we are. It's around the lambs, the customized data sources that develop purpose-built
Yeah.
agents that
Yeah.
do different functions. I keep thinking of it as the corollary to the App Store. Um,
Yeah.
Although I don't think that does it justice, but I think we're rapidly heading in that world where there's tons of agents that are similar to app. They do very specific things for us, but more apps on steroids, maybe.
Yeah, because instead of us trying to say, oh, I'd really like to use my generative AI platform of choice to do this thing for me, you can shop what other people have already created, kind of in the agent store, and they're doing this for you. So anything you've imagined, you might be able to find in an agent store.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, much more to come on agents. I hope we talk about it at some of our events, and for sure we'll be talking about it, next October at our AI event when we get to that point.
Yeah, and from a research standpoint, this will be the next thing that we'll see rolled out in all of the tools, right?
Yeah.
We had AI, kind of the first wave of AI. Now we're going to have the agents. We already are seeing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But that's,
Yes,
here's the flip
that being
side.
said.
Yes, because this was really interesting.
Yeah.
You found this, so why don't you tee it
Yeah.
up?
Yeah. Well, it's a research article, but a good one, and more traditional research, not necessarily consumer research.
Well, your research isn't good. What are you saying, Karen?
No,
What are you trying to
traditional,
say?
like, research, like the science of research, not the kind of consumer research that we do, or B2B, insights work. This is a study on critical thinking and AI, and whether, kind of hypothesis, over reliance on AI tools will negatively impact critical thinking. And I know that this was your biggest concern back in the day.
Yep.
Is my reliance on these tools going to affect how I think? Is it going to make me lazy? Is it going to change my brain? And this study is indicating that yes, perhaps it is. So we have to put in strategies to, like, the takeaway from that is, yes, there is some suggestion that an over reliance, especially with young users,
Yep.
could negatively impact their development of critical thinking skills. But there's a line in here, even when you read it, that says, and I'm quoting, I have it pulled up in a couple places, workplace training, and the idea that you should focus on cognitive resilience. And again, it's like super deep because I dug way into this one as a geek, but it was like encouraging activities that promote deep thinking and analytical reasoning, like We have to be careful in the workplace. We have to be careful raising up our children,
Yep.
but also for ourselves and our staff. At the same time, we're pushing people to use AI. We have to make sure that they also do critical thinking themselves and stay sharp. So I loved this study. I just think this is absolutely, because it's not going away. Like, this is not up to you. You can decide to use or not to use, I suppose, but at some point, I don't even know if you'll have that choice. It's just the way of the world.
Agreed.
Right?
So there's no joy of I was right in this. I mean, but I will say that I think that the way that I personally have tried to approach this is, where does this make sense as a force multiplier for me in my usage,
Right.
for drudgery based tasks, right?
Yeah.
Things that really don't add value.
Yeah.
For me, that's felt comfortable
Yeah.
to address this issue. Like, I still need to think and guide and go through that. It's just created some efficiencies in how I collate the information and present it and put it together. That I love that. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
But I've been very cautious, and this still has to be driven by how I think about things, for my own ego, my own sense of self-worth, and we still have not allowed our kids to utilize AI for this reason. We're making them work for it, damn it.
Yeah. Do it while you can, right? Because, anyway, once they become young adults, it's all up to them. Apparently, they make their own decisions when they become adults and don't.
Oh God, don't get me started on that. I was trying to convince my oldest daughter to come home from California this week, and nope.
Yeah.
So now I'm just going to be worrying about you the whole time. Oh well, Dad, get over it. I'm 30. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 30.
Yes, it never changes. Yeah. So I guess last on that point, as you said it, as an industry, we have to take serious looks at these things. But if we're bringing up the next Gen Z and into the workforce, and stepping up, there's lots of implications for these things. So,
and I mean, I could argue that critical thinking was kind of on the way out way before generative AI hit.
Probably. There's a lot of evidence for that too.
I think that, So, I think it's an area that we really need to take a look at. Do our people have the skills they need? Because certainly, as you get higher up in your career, those skills are critical, right? You have to be able to think strategically, and that is in your brain. Like, you can maybe look to these tools to help you, but if you're not able to go there in your own brain, you won't get to those higher level positions that you most likely want.
Well, do we need to do like maybe at one of the IEX events, a Socratic path, right? That's all.
I actually know somebody who could lead a Socratic questioning exercise for us. So now I want to see what anyway. Let me anyway, he did a really great thing at one of the conferences that I went to of Socratic questioning, and it was teaching qualitative researchers that as a tool for asking questions, this kind of Socratic method, and what it would be all about. And it was so interesting. It was like, could you imagine people in the groups would be like, I don't really even know what's happening here. Like, it's just a totally different way of questioning.
There was a reason he was poisoned. I mean, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's times. Now, the flip side, this other one of, marketers bet and AI, 60% believe AI and machine learning will reshape marketing strategies in 5 years. So
60%, I know.
60%. We're not escaping this.
I know. And I think this is from eMarketer. I think, where they, have an audience of marketers. So it's, it's going to their audience. And I think it said in here, it was talking about personalization as being, something that they're using AI for. Interesting. I'd love to see how that works. But then also they were saying ad optimization, right? And chatbots. So, marketers are leaning in. So what does that tell you? If so many of our audience members are in service to marketers, it's good to know what marketers are betting on, right?
And there's
Yeah.
the segue. So, Carly, can you find the link to the CEO series of Ted Tagalakis and post that in? Because I think it connects to this next piece on the AI simulates human focus groups and what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
So use that as an example. We like Ted, so props to Ted and Sparky. Marketing optimization platform based on AI. They've now created virtual focus groups in as part of the creative process, embedded into the platform. No humans involved, right? It's just
Yeah.
persona training, and to help with the creative process. And I did an interview with Ted, so it gets into that. So that's why that link is there. But we saw now this paper that came out. AI simulates human focus groups. Researchers replicated human personalities with 85% accuracy in ad
Yeah.
evaluations using AI. And I was talking to another company yesterday. They said that they were achieving something like 96% on
Yeah.
with synthetic sample, compared side by side with traditional. We're here, guys. We have to like it, and it's not fit
Yeah.
for everything, but we're it's dumb to assume that
Yeah.
these tools are not going to be experimented with, and in some cases are going to be adopted, and that's going to have impacts on primary research. It just
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And what's interesting about all that is I think that when there's a lot of controversy on our not on our people won't understand what I mean by that. There's been some controversy about an article that we wrote, that we didn't wrote, that we published, is like about the end of the survey era. Like, it has this, is the survey era coming to an end?
Mhm.
And it's basically saying that, like, with conversational AI, maybe people would rather answer questions that way than, address surveys. So that calls to question whether qualitative data collected with AI assist would actually be, kind of the way of the future, as opposed to, survey data. So again, provocative area to play in. And I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
somebody else just pitched the idea to talk at a North America event sort of about
Hey,
this.
Ray Pointer's been saying this
Yeah.
for years. I don't know how provocative it is when the president of SMR has been taking
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
position for quite some time.
But this right here, this last thing that we're talking about, this, this idea that focus groups are also being replicated, that kind of then makes you wonder, well, what is the role of what's the role of qualitative data in surveys? What's the role of qualitative research in research?
Mhm.
Because AI, I think at some point some point in the last year, people were thinking, well, at least there's the human approach and blah, 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 blah. But if AI is going to replicate that as well, really,
So,
it's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
so I had a pharma company reach out to me yesterday, which ended up being one of the funnest conversations I've had in a long time. So for whatever that's worth, I won't name their names, but they know who they are. Um, but they reached out because they had seen the Gen 2 market matrix in one of the presentations we did, right? The kind of our alignment to methodology to business issues. Anyway, and they asked, well, what about AI? Right? Have you and I go, well, yeah, we should probably do that, shouldn't we? The
Yeah.
point was that, yeah, I mean, pharma companies have very unique challenges, right? They don't have much personal data with customers because of HIPAA, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but they really do want to understand patients. They want to understand people's experience and overall. And there's challenges with traditional research and doing that efficiently.
Yeah.
And their questions are, how can we utilize AI to get us to the same place?
Yeah.
So that was just a very interesting and specific case study in that
Yeah.
conversation around uh, all kinds of chase. Where we got to was, look, for early stage ideation and kind of like how I use ChatGPT to throw shit against the wall and kind of iterate off ideas and concepts. Sure, and especially if you can access a data set trained on real individual data on real people. Um, uh, but nobody seems at the moment to think, but we can't. It's not going to replace real research. It can help us maybe with early stage stuff, right? To formulate kind of our thinking in concepts, but we still need to go to people and test it, despite the accuracy, because the insight is not the 89%. accuracy. Okay, great. That 89% is probably the worthless aspect of that. The insight is going to be the outlier that comes in through the 11%.
Yeah. It's all, look,
So
it all is going to come back to what is the purpose of the research? What business question do you want answered? And are AI methods or qual at scale methods or focus groups or synthetic groups, what is going to be the methodology that will get you the answer to that business question?
right.
And I mean, that concept is unchanged, even if the variables around it have changed. Right?
Exactly.
You
Still
just have
cheaper, faster, better.
yeah, just get, ladder up to what is the business challenge and what are the questions we're trying to answer, and then choose your path accordingly. But that is that is the evergreen thing that people should stay fixated on, and stay fluid with the methods.
Agreed.
Because God knows that is what we need right now. So,
and go back to the critical thinking piece, right? So is there a world where we've been in, where technology continues to just take a lot of the process stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we've been living in that world for a long time. The research industry has been navigating that for a while. This is more of that. Where's the value add? The value add is not in the process. That's the value add for the tech companies. Absolutely. Right. They are process enablers. The value add for researchers is in our critical thinking, is in our ability to make sense of what this is telling us, draw conclusions, and make recommendations that move the needle for the business. So increasingly, this is just more of the same. It's just it seems scarier because it's more pronounced, right? The technology is more, kind of crazy. But this isn't a new problem for us as an industry. And we're navigating it okay.
Do you see Anish just shared that the combination of AI, 3D holographic avatars, and synthetic data can take over all research?
Well, Anish, if you're working on that, we'd love to see that.
Because for real though, like,
could it? I mean,
I think we are living in an era of the possibilities are not necessarily just hypothetical anymore. Did when you and I first started talking about generative AI and we were thinking about what the possibilities are, did we think we'd have agent stores this month? We knew that was a possibility, but we couldn't really conceptualize it. And then all of a sudden we're like, hold up, this is happening. Right. So we are seeing the results of all these, I don't know, what if scenarios coming true.
Right.
So Anish could be onto something. I don't mean to send everybody into industry panic. That's not the point. The point is evolve, industry evolution. Because it's happening fast.
But the point of adoption, and that's the adoption curve, is still an issue, right? My sense, we'll find out the new grit. Take grit, especially if you're a client, right? Because I think that's where the piece. Where are we on the adoption curve? It's still, we covered this not too long ago. What, like 30%, something of that nature. So there's still a ways to go. There's still a lot of entrenched resistance to change for systemically, bureaucratically in organizations. It will be interesting to see I think there will be incentives for adoption of technology in the new administration simply because of the nature of some of the people surrounding it, the big tech guys. I mean, they want to see their tools being used. So that'll be interesting to see. But still, human nature is still slow to adopt. So I think we have, Anish is right. Is that going to emerge? Yes. Is it going to be in wide scale adoption in 2 years? Yeah. 5 years? No, I'll give it that, but I don't think it's tomorrow. So we have some time to adapt to these things. I think. I didn't think that 2 years ago. I really thought, like, holy crap, this is sea change, paradigm shift. But it takes longer.
Talking to somebody else this week, and there's still very traditional research taking place at, I think, many, many large brands. So
absolutely.
So it's not an immediate holy crap moment. So
right. Most your facilities haven't gone out of business, neither have the survey platforms.
Exactly.
So yes.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. But coming back down to earth, I'm like, oh my God, we have all these stuff to talk about. Should we skip to the industry activity and kind of cover these two things? And then leave with some interesting stuff, or do you want to start with marketing? I don't know, Lenny, I'll leave it up to you.
No, well, I do think that it's stood out because it ties us together. That study on half of consumers feel ignored by marketers. Carly put the link in. What was interesting about that, it goes back to this whole conversation we're having. We still need, okay, why do they feel ignored? Probably because they're not part of the data that is making marketers aware. So, we still have to solve this garbage in, garbage out problem, no matter what, whether we're talking about a survey or AI holographic avatars. We need to engage people. We need their data. We can only personalize and deliver on the marketing value if we do that. So there's still some foundational issues that we need to deal with, and that's why that jumped out at me.
There's a section in here, and I think the CMO of one of the companies that did this study said something about marketers tending to be youth obsessed. So if you end up following this link and you get in there, marketers tend to be youth obsessed, and yet older audiences, I mean, it's like an age-old problem, right? Older audiences have more money and they're feeling ignored, and that may not be a wise decision right now because for a million reasons. We don't need to get into all of that, but it's interesting to get kind of confirmation of that. And this other study, one more study then, since we're doing this, other one I think is fascinating because I've been thinking a lot about it. So there's a Vibe survey that says texting drives consumer engagement. Texting, and it basically says, and you might be skeptical when you hear what I'm about to say.
I am, because I'm not one of those guys.
Mobile users prefer frequent text communications from brands that influence their shopping and dining behavior. So this was a Mobile Consumer Insights report of 1,000 mobile-centric consumers, and it says 4 in 5 want to receive text messages from brands they love at least once a week. Now, my first thought is, oh, hell no, that's not accurate, is it?
Right.
But then I started to think about my Mets organization, and I started to think that I like when they text me. I like when the Mets texts me. I don't necessarily care to hear, other brands that I'm a brand fan of. Starbucks, right? I've been clear about that, but I'm like, I don't need to hear from Starbucks, but the Mets, I like those texts. So I started to really think about this and think, that's interesting to me. So maybe there are other people like that are like, I actually enjoy getting a text from some brand that they are a brand fan of.
For some,
some.
I would say that there's a few, but very few. A lot.
Very few. So what does that tell you? I just think that's really interesting. So, do I want to keep getting texts from every brand? No, but are there some? So I would absolutely love to learn more about this one. I think the study is really worth the download.
Implication would be, does that apply for research as well? Right. So can we change that and engage people? There's lots of that's been out there for years.
They probably don't want to be getting the link to complete the grit survey on their, via text. That's my best guess, right? But maybe people do. Maybe they want, maybe they want to learn about, a new platform or new something. Like maybe in the B2B space that will translate. I don't know, but
or you just set your agent to answer it and go forward.
Right. So when the promo nights for the Mets organization come out and they're giving away jerseys on a certain night that I don't want to miss, maybe my agent would just say, let's just get her the damn tickets. Right. Just buy her the tickets. Karen doesn't have to loop into him. That's all I'm saying.
There we go. And maybe it'll be your holographic avatar. So we're not far. Let's wrap up these last two news pieces because there's some specific connected. iMotions and Affectiva announced that they're already kind of part of the same company, but they're really merging the capabilities together for behavioral research. So that's really interesting. It's eye tracking and facial coding combined into one platform. Good for them. That's fantastic. They are an incredibly scalable solution, and they do work outside of research. So I think they're going in the right direction and feeding AI models with that data. So they reconnect the dots. And then back, Nichefire closed a big venture round through Rev1 Ventures with support from Walmart and Nestle, and that should tell you something. Nichefire, they've been on our stage multiple times. I think a sponsor. So the trajectory is clear. Where all of these things are going, and there was just 2 more examples this week.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
All right. So we didn't make it like 30 minutes like we did last week, but we
That's
didn't
all
go over
right.
too
That's
bad.
all right. This isn't too bad. We got just 4 minutes over. So I'm sure our people will be okay with us. Tell us if you're not.
Yes, send us hate mail. We don't want hate mail, but if we need to, keep us on our toes. And I guess that's it till next week.
That's it till next week. So yeah, hopefully by then we can switch to, talking about things like, isn't the Super Bowl coming up? Like we can get lighthearted and
The Super Bowl ads.
yeah,
Yeah.
Super Bowl ads.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. I'm sure that's going to start to pop up in our feed. So everybody have a great weekend. Have a great week. Good luck if you're looking for your migration off of TikTok. We'll see what happens.
Yes. Oh, and one more shout out. Those I talked to a lot of folks this week impacted by the California fires in their industry.
Yeah.
Continual support and for that unfolding disaster. Those of you out there, you're in our hearts and prayers. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck to
All
everybody.
Right. Everybody take care.
Bye.